Hey, how's it going? In Chambers of Xeric, the melee hand in Ulm is usually what people find most difficult to learn when trying to learn solo raids, but in this video, I'm going to try my best to help with that. This has by far been the most requested video for me to make, even though there's already so many guides out there. So after having done more than 500 solo raids at this point, I figured it's probably about time to make this. As a disclaimer, I'm not claiming anything I show in this video are going to be the best methods. What I'll be doing is showing the process I went through to build up to being able to consistently get into 4-1 for the melee hand. These are just the things that worked for me, but if you pick any two random raiders, odds are their methods for getting into 4-1 will be slightly different. This video is going to be focused on how to defeat Ulm's melee hand. There's plenty of other videos out there on the mage hand, head phase, the rooms themselves, but the melee hand seems to be the biggest bottleneck for solo chambers, which is why we're here today. With that said, let's jump back to the very beginning. Start in team raids. And before 90% of you say you don't have friends that raid, there's a Discord server called We Do Raids, which I'll link in the description. And this isn't sponsored, by the way. This is just a genuinely useful resource that you'll get a lot of value out of. There's over 100,000 people in the server, and the server is focused on teaching people how to raid, or just for finding teams. They have lists of stat requirements and different gear setups, as well as text, GIF, and video guides for anything imaginable relating to chambers, CMs, even other stuff like Inferno and more. The point is that there's no excuse that you can't get a team to do raids with. And you may have heard that We Do Raid sucks because your friend had one bad experience on a random Tuesday, but when there's such a massive sample size of over 100,000 people, of course there's going to be some bad eggs and people that have bad experiences, but the majority of people are good people that genuinely want to help you learn. The reasons why you want to start in team raids and not jump right into solos is because besides for making 4-1 easier, which I'll get into in a second, it also will teach you the rooms of the raid. The way you do the rooms is basically the same in a solo as in a team, so you're better off just learning in a team so they can show you the ropes. And it'll make you more comfortable in the Ulm room as well, so you know what the auto attacks look like and how the special attacks work. When you're new to raids and you're in a team, you'll usually either be doing mage hand or running the head, but eventually you'll build up the confidence to do the melee hand. And along the way, you'll learn how to recognize if Ulm is set to mage or melee and how to set it if it's not, which isn't important for solos, but you'll learn that in team raids. But most importantly, you'll learn 3-1 melee skipping in team raids, and this is where it all starts. And just to clarify if you didn't know, when I say 3-1 and 4-1, 3-1 would mean I'm doing 3 hits and Ulm only gets to do 1 hit on me during that time, or 4-1 means I get to do 4 hits while Ulm only gets 1 hit on me. I'm so glad I found this old clip that you're seeing on screen. This is when I first learned how to do melee skipping, and this is just a perfect example to show 3-1 melee skipping, because as you'll notice, you don't have to be tick perfect. In 4-1, you do have to be tick perfect, but this is why you want to learn 3-1 first. What you're seeing me do on screen though, this only works for team raids. Don't try doing this in solos. You have a few extra ticks of wiggle room that allow you to run to the melee hand slightly late. It's better to run slightly late because if you ran too early, you would mess it up and then the team would get specials. After you've done 3-1 for a while and you're getting comfortable, you'll be ready to start trying to get that 4th hit in. At this point, I'm sure you would have had some situations where you actually clicked on the melee hand on the exact proper tick and may have even done 4-1 on accident a few times, but now it's time to start doing it on purpose. Ulm attacks on a 4-tick cycle, which is why it's ideal to learn using a 4-tick weapon like a lance, hasta, whip, etc., as compared to a fang or a scythe, which is a 5-tick weapon. If you want to understand the basic mechanics, a 4-tick weapon will be easier at the start. The timing for getting into 4-1 is your character needs to move the same tick Ulm's head moves. It's very hard to explain this timing to someone new to raids because while yes, you can technically count ticks or use metronomes, it's more of an intuitive timing that you'll have learned while doing 3-1. You want to click on the hand the tick before Ulm's head moves so that on the next tick, when his head moves, your character moves at the same time as Ulm's head. And if you did that right and moved at the same time, then now you're attacking on the proper tick, which means when you go back to the left side, you won't be standing there for even a single tick. You'll just immediately be running back to hit the melee hand. However, if you hit 0 for the first 2 hits, then you're going to want to run to the far right tile marker finger, which is the ring finger. Probably even after you hit 1-0, I would do it just to be safe, because otherwise the head won't turn properly. And this is going to be somewhat relevant to know for soloing. And this is really it. This is how I eased myself into solos. I had done over 1,000 team raids before I ever tried to solo. You definitely don't need to wait even close to that long. It was just for UIM reasons that I didn't solo. I don't think there's a definitive answer for how many team raids it'll take you to learn 4-to-1 melee skipping, but however long it does take you to get comfortable with that timing, then you'll be ready to solo Olm. Before we get into solo Olm, I'd highly recommend you use this plugin, Tile Indicators, and having True Tile checked is the most important one, but personally I like having all three enabled. The True Tile though, it shows the tile your character is actually registered on for that game tick, even if your character doesn't visually appear to be in that spot. There's two distinct separations to make about being in 4-to-1. The first part is that you're attacking on the proper tick, and the second part is knowing where Olm is at in his cycle so that you're actually skipping specials and not skipping Olm's null attack. For the first part, to be attacking on the proper tick is to be hitting 1 tick after Olm's attack. You may have heard other people tell you to count the ticks or look for a certain head movement to click so that you're attacking 1 tick after Olm. But what I've always done is start on that tile marker 1 tile left of the center, and it's literally the exact same thing as in team raids. If you followed what I did, you'll already have that intuition of when to click the hand, which again is clicking 1 tick before Olm's head moves so that you're moving the same time that the head moves. And guess what? You are now attacking on the proper tick. You are attacking 1 tick after Olm if you do this, which means you've already solved half of the 4-to-1 problem. In fact, I'd argue even more than half because I think this is the harder part to learn. For solo Olm, you always want to run to the far right tile, the ring finger, after your first hit. There's no standing around after the first hit though, you need to be tick perfect. This is where the True Tile indicator helps. You need to click to the ring finger as soon as your true tile is on the thumb tile marker. You can also look at the XP drop because you can click as soon as you see the XP drop, but the problem with that is that you don't always get an XP drop since you could hit a 0. So just know to click the ring finger tile as soon as your true tile is at the thumb. As soon as your true tile gets to the ring finger, then click on the hand and you'll get your second hit in. It doesn't really matter where you do your third hit, but I like to walk/run 2 tiles to the left and then do the hit there. But what does matter is the fourth hit. For the fourth hit, you always want to be on the thumb tile. And then as soon as either the XP drop happens or your character starts doing the attack animation, that's when you want to click on that tile that's just 1 left of the center. And you don't want to stall in that tile. You need to be moving the whole time. So as soon as your true tile gets to that left side of Olm, you need to immediately click back on the hand and then continue the cycle. Now the question is, how do you know where you are in Olm's attack cycle so that you're skipping Olm's special? Olm goes in a cycle of 4 attacks that are each 4 ticks apart, which is why 4-to-1 is a thing in the first place. A couple ticks after you do your second hit, or you could say right before you do your third hit, because remember Olm is attacking 1 tick before you. Olm will do either an auto attack or a special attack. So right here, right before my third hit, we got an auto attack, and you will always do at least a 4th hit, but just pay attention to what Olm does next. And when I do my 4th hit, Olm does nothing. So if it's a null, then that means you're already in 4-to-1 because you always want a null right before you do your 4th hit. Now let's look what happens when you get that auto attack right before your 3rd hit, and then you get a back-to-back auto attack right before your 4th hit. So there's the 3rd hit auto attack, and then on the 4th hit, there's another auto attack. And this means that you need to do a 3-to-1 to get back into the proper cycle. So hit the thumb as usual, then hit the ring finger as usual, but then run back to the thumb for your 3rd hit, and then run to the left right after your 3rd hit, and now you're in 4-to-1 skipping specials. What if at this point, Olm does a special attack? Well, the quick answer is that you do 3 hits after the special. The first hit of the 3 is the hit that you do 1 tick after the special, so it's almost going to feel like you're just doing 2 hits, but it is 3 total after the special. And then from there, just go back to doing 4-to-1 and you'll be properly skipping specials. Olm has 3 special attacks that appear in every phase no matter what. It's crystals, lightning, and teleports in that order. Although on the 3rd phase, he adds in a 4th special, healing. If you get the crystal special, it's easy. You just do your first hit 1 tick after the crystal pop up, and then move a tile over to the side to do the 2nd hit after the special, and then for the 3rd hit after the special, just make sure you're doing it from the thumb. And then you'll be in 4-to-1 skipping specials. Right here, I got the lightning special attack, and when a special attack happens, you need to do 3 hits after. Your first hit will be 1 tick after the special happens, then Olm will do an auto attack and you'll do hit number 2 1 tick later, and then Olm will have a null attack, and then you do your third hit after the special and it's time to skip. For lightning, it's kind of hit or miss. There's a lot of situations that can happen, but just try your best to stay in 4-1, and if it is getting overwhelming, you can just go to that tile that's 1 left of the middle and then restart getting into 4-1. It's one of those things that you just get better at over time by experiencing it more and more. And then how to deal with the teleports. Well, the teleports can be anywhere in the room and there's not really anything you can do about that. So a lot of the time, most of the time, you'll probably just have to start your 4-1 cycle over. Once you get the message in the chat box saying the teleport attack had no effect, just go to that tile marker 1 left of the middle and then start over and try again. To summarize, if Olm does an auto and then a null, that means you're already in cycle. If Olm does an auto attack into a back-to-back auto attack, then you need to do 1 3-1 and then you'll be in cycle. And then if Olm does a special, stay and do 3 more hits and then run, and then you'll be in 4-1 cycle properly. There's another situation to be aware of. When you're doing 4-1, if your second and third hits miss, then Olm's head will turn to the middle. I actually thought you had to miss the first 3 hits, but this clip seems to prove otherwise. So if you miss hits 2 and 3, the head will turn to the middle. You're still going to do your 4th hit, but as soon as you do the 4th hit, run to the ring finger, then run to the left tile, and then do 1 3-1 rotation, and then you'll be back in cycle. Just to show you that you need to do a 3-1 here, I purposely tried doing a 4-1 to show you that you would get the back-to-back auto attack for the 3rd and 4th hit. And what do we remember from what I showed before? That when we get back-to-back auto attacks, we have to do a 3-1. So hopefully you can kind of start to see how this intertwines together. Let's talk about phase-specific auto attacks. At the start of each phase, your chat box will say Olm rises with the power of either crystal, flame, or acid. And that tells you what types of different autos you can expect that phase. To be clear, these are not specials, these are auto attacks. Normally when you think of the auto attack, you think of either a mage or a range hit, but these count as autos as well. And we're going to start out with the crystal phase because we're kind of already there. And the phase specific auto to watch out for here during the melee hand is the falling crystals. Not to be confused with the crystals that pop up out of the ground. Those aren't phase specific, those are just the specials that can happen throughout the whole Olm fight. But the falling crystals is what we're talking about here, which is different. This is the easiest phase specific auto to deal with in my opinion. Just don't stand still for more than 1 game tick and you'll be good. You can see the pattern I do, but I feel like everyone has their own pattern and you can copy mine if you want or figure out something that works for you. Next up, let's go to the acid phase. The acid trail is a bit more difficult because you can't even stand still for a single tick or else you take damage. So you need to be constantly moving. This is the path I take. It's definitely not the best path because I do still take some damage, but again, you can use this to at least understand how the acid trail works and then form a pattern that works for you. And finally, the flame phase. The phase specific auto to watch out for here is the flame wall. You're going to be dodging the flame wall the whole time you're doing the melee hand because you never know when he'll throw that at you. Well, you kind of know because once you're properly in cycle in 4-1, Olm's auto attack always happens between your 2nd and 3rd hit. And the way you dodge the flame wall is by being on the safe spots, and the furthest 2 columns will prevent you from being caught in it. If you're on this side of the room, it's easy because after your first hit, instead of running to the ring finger, run an extra tile to the right, and if you're standing on this tile, Olm cannot flame wall you. If you're on the other side of the room, it takes a little bit more work. You still run to 1 tile right of the tile marker, but once you do your 2nd hit out of 4, you're going to go 1 tile to the right and stay there for a tick. Or you can go 2 tiles, but that just takes a bit more run. An important thing to remember is that during P3 of Olm, he uses all 3 crystal, acid, and flame, which means you're always going to be dodging flame walls on P3. Now you know how to dodge flame walls when you're already in 4-1, but what about dodging flame walls while you're trying to get into 4-1? You don't need to worry about this so much when you're learning for the first time, since you should be bringing humidify or some kind of water spell with you to free yourself, but it's going to be good to know eventually. So I see I'm in flame phase, I'm just finishing off the mage hand, and then I do the clicky thing so I know that I'm moving the same tick that Olm's head is moving, and now I have to find where Olm is at in his attack cycle. After my 2nd hit, I move 1 tile left, stay for 1 tick, and then run 2 tiles left, so if he threw a flame wall, I wouldn't be in it. From there, I do my 3rd hit and immediately run 2 tiles back to the right, I stay there for 1 tick, run 2 tiles back to the left, do hit number 4, and now I know where I'm at. I've got 2 autos in a row, so I can run a 3-to-1 and then get properly in cycle. Basically, I'm running 2 tiles away the same tick Olm could theoretically spawn a flame wall, so that if he actually did do it, I wouldn't be caught in it. And the reason I don't want to stand in the pinky safe spot when I'm trying to figure out where Olm is at in his cycle is because if Olm does do a special, then there's a chance I could get hit by lightning. Although technically you can also anticipate the lightning coming out of the wall, but we're getting way too advanced for what this video is supposed to be. If you do successfully dodge a flame wall like this though, I have a little trick to show you, which is also nice to know for other situations, like if a crystal bomb spawns next to the hand, or if you have to run to a teleport on the opposite end of the room. You can stay in the 4-to-1 cycle by running to the tile on the far left side of the room, and then click to attack the melee hand the tick before Olm's head is going to turn to you, so that you're running on the same tick Olm's head is turning. Again, anticipating the timing for when the head turns goes back to what I talked about at the start of the video, how you want to learn 3-to-1, then 4-to-1 melee skipping in team raids. As soon as your true tile confirms you've done the hit, run to the pinky and then stay for 1 tick before moving. Although if you have that intuitive timing down, then you don't need to necessarily count the 1 tick, you're just going to know when to move. But you'll be moving back to the left side of Olm's head, just 1 tile left of the center, and then starting back up the 4-to-1, and Olm's attacks will be perfectly in cycle for you to be skipping specials. This is assuming that you were already in 4-to-1 to begin with before you ran all the way to the far left side. I'll play this again, but in real time just so it's not in slow motion. So first we dodge the flame wall, run to the far left side, click on the melee hand the tick before Olm's head is going to turn. As soon as you do the hit, run to the ring finger tile, stay for 1 tick, run to the left tile, and then immediately get back into the 4-to-1 cycle. And what I kind of did there was a 1-to-0. You can run back and forth without stopping between the tile just left of the middle and the ring finger. And this is a good way to stall time if you need to overload or brew up. And in fact, you can fight the whole melee hand doing 1-to-0 and not have to worry about taking any damage. No auto attacks, no specials or anything. The downside is that you're doing a lot less damage overall and you're going to need more stamina. It's a nice skill to have in your arsenal for a lot of different situations, and it's another way to help build that intuition of knowing when Olm's head is going to turn without actually counting ticks. During phases 1 and 2, if you do more than a couple hits on the melee hand, it'll cripple, which means you won't be able to attack it. So besides for doing your specs, you're kind of forced to kill the mage hand first for P1 and P2, but on P3, the melee hand doesn't cripple. And because you're able to start out in a guaranteed 4-to-1 cycle skipping specials if you know what you're doing, then typically you'd get the melee hand to low health first, then get the mage hand low health, and then go back to the melee hand and kill that one first, because Olm can spawn the healing special only on P3, which heals just the melee hand. You can go back and replay how I got into 4-to-1 right there, but I do that same thing every time. It always works the same way when you're starting out P3. It may not be the best way, and I think some more experienced raiders kind of raise their eyebrows and silently judge me for doing it that way, but you know what? I'm just having fun, and anyone better than me is a sweaty nerd, and anyone worse than me is a noob who needs to get good. Which is pretty much my mantra with a lot of things in life. I also like finishing the melee hand during P3 by doing 1-to-0 before jumping into the mage hand, and this is just to prevent the healing special from occurring. If I'm doing 1-to-0, then I don't have to worry about getting into 4-to-1 just to do the last few hits. Some final tips of advice: you can go into a raid on the Arceus spellbook with runes for Vile Vigor, and this spell converts your prayer points into run, so you can make an inventory of restores in the raid and not have to use your own stamina potions, which I think is useful for Iron Men to know, and then just run back and forth in the Olm room to try and figure out the timing on turning his head. I'd also recommend you use some sort of replay buffer. NVIDIA Shadowplay for me is kind of buggy with Runelite, but replay buffer on OBS works really well. It constantly records your screen with a rolling timer of however long you set it to. I keep mine at 60 seconds, and at any point you can click save and it'll save a replay of the last however many seconds you set it to. And I always recommend using replay buffer if you're trying to learn anything new in the game, not just chambers. Because people will be like, do you have any advice for such and such piece of content in the game? And I'll be like, well, what are you struggling with? And they'll be like, I don't know. Well, if you use Replay Buffer, you will know what you're struggling with and you'll know the right questions to ask so you can figure out what you're doing wrong. Solo Ulm is my favorite content in the game, and the more you get into it, the more you realize how beautiful the mechanics are and just how perfect the math works out, which ends up making the fight so satisfying. My hope is that you use the cumulative knowledge of things you learned from this video along with other people's guides to refine your own methods and come to your own conclusions about what works for you to make you an overall more well-rounded raider. And with that said, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully you were able to learn at least one new thing today.